Pokemon Red with Whole New Mew was sort of fun, but it wasn't very creative. So let's try something I don't think anyone's done before, at least not for this format. Today I figure out, can I beat Pokemon Blue with only normal Pokemon? Normal Pokemon are kind of all over the place. While they nowadays have a pretty good stat average, most of the good ones can't be obtained for a while. That means I'll be stuck pretty much with Pidgey and Rattata for a good chunk of the run. That's annoying, because the first gym leader is Brock, who resists normal moves. I'm writing my notes for this challenge as I go, so let me know if you think I can win. I think I can probably win, but beating Brock will be a pain, and I'll have to do a good chunk of grinding, probably. Okay, so, the rules are really simple. I can only use normal-type Pokemon in battle, but normal-type Pokemon can learn all of the HMs, so I can use other Pokemon for HMs. Healing items can't be used in battle, but X items are. For the next reason, that being, there are no glitches, but there are a few speedrun exploits that I do plan to use, one of which abuses the X accuracy. Also, additional rule, if I find a Pokemon that I think is normal type, I can catch it, but I can't use it unless it is actually a normal type, because my memory is not very good. And make sure to like the video and subscribe to join the PokeCrafter fam, and let's get started. Right off the bat, I used the Universal Pokemon Randomizer to replace Charmander with Pidgey. I chose Pidgey pretty much arbitrarily because it was an easy early game Pokemon that is normal type and I like more than Rattata. I had it replace Charmander so that my rival chooses Squirtle because after the previous run, I'm bored out of my skull with his Charmander team. I name it Spearow because that's hilarious. It's time for us to get a new team member. A Rattata I name Ratboy because I can't think of a better name. When Ratboy was level 10 and Spearow was level 11, I tried Brock. I started by trying to quick attack his Geodude with Ratboy, but it took me out, so I used Sand Attack with Spearow and eventually beat it. I used the same strategy against his Onix. It would have worked, but I didn't notice when he used Bide and took enough damage to knock me out. I tried again with both of my Pokemon at level 15, and it went much better. I led with Spearow, and I set up 6 Sand Attacks right away. Then I tried using Gust a lot, but I got bored and switched out to Ratboy, who had learned Hyper Fang, and said I just used that. I switched back to Spearow and did pretty much the same thing for his Onix. The only difference is that this time I used 6 Tail Whips with Ratboy, which made finishing him off a lot easier. I think if I'd used this strategy right away, I could probably have run without the extra grinding. Spearow evolved into Pidgeotto along the way, which was fun, I guess. Along the way, I took the Helix Fossil. I knew if I didn't say what I took, you'd all ask. Actually, now that I think about it, everyone asks anyway. Comments are good for the YouTube algorithm. Just before Cerulean, I got my next team member, a Spearow that I name Adora. I had figured out my naming trend at this point, so I hope you can too. I don't intend to keep Adora around all that long, though, because I only need one early game flyer, and Pidgeot is cooler than Fearow. With Ratboy at level 17, Spearow at level 20, and Adora pretty much as just a bit of level 12 deadweight, I tried Misty. Spearow beat Staryu with a few gusts, but then went down to 2 Bubble Beams from Starmie. Ratboy came in and did some decent damage with Hyper Fang, but didn't do enough, and Starmie finished him off. Adora was out and instantly got taken out by Bubble Beam. I think I need to grind more. When Spearow and Ratboy, who had now evolved into Raticate, had gotten to level 20, and Adora got to level 15, I tried Misty again. This time went much better. I took out her Staryu with 2 gusts, but I knew I wouldn't be able to do the same thing against her Starmie, so instead I set up 6 Sand Attacks. I did decent damage with a few gusts, but eventually Spearow went down. Fortunately, though, one Hyper Fang from Rat Boy could finish her off. The battle with Rival on Nugget Bridge was easy. I swept half his team with Spearow, and then I switched out to Rat Boy for the other half because his Pidgeotto's stand attacks were starting to get to me. I went down south to Route 5 to get my next Pokemon, a Meowth that I named Catra. Now it's time for the SSN Rival battle. I used one Fury attack with Adora before switching out to Spearow to take him down with 2 Gusts. Next up, Raticate, who I switched out to Catra for. I got him down to yellow with 1 critical bite, but then he brought me down to half with Hyper Fang. I finished him off with another bite. Time for his Kadabra, who I was confident I could OHKO with 1 bite to abuse his low defense. I did not. He, instead, beat Catra with 1 confusion. Frickin' joy. I brought out Rat Boy to finish off his 2 remaining Pokemon with a few Hyper Fangs. Search time. Dig has the same power as Earthquake in Gen 1, so I taught it to Rat Boy and swept his whole team with it. I got to Celadon, and I got the TMs for Horn Drill and for Ice Beam. You'll see why I got Horn Drill when we get to Koga. In Lavender Town, I made a pit stop at the name writer to change Rat Boy's name to Micah, and I sincerely hope you get the naming trend at this point. I also renamed Spearow to Bird Jesus, because even though it doesn't fit the naming trend, I always name my Pidgeys that, because Watch Twitch plays Pokemon. Time for the Pokemon Tower rival fight. Catra, who was now a Persian, beat his first 2 Pokemon with no problem. I switched out to Micah to deal with his Execute, because I'd taught it Ice Beam. Unfortunately, though, it put me to sleep. It was taking ages for Micah to wake up, so I switched out to Adora, who also got put to sleep. Come on. Thankfully, though, I easily woke up and beat him. Now time for the Ghost of Marowak. You might know what I'm about to do, so skip to the timestamp on screen if you do, but there's an item in Pokemon known as the Pokédoll, and the Pokédoll can escape any wild encounter with a win, including static story encounters, such as the Ghost of Marowak. Needless to say, I used the Pokédoll and got past the Ghost of Marowak. This is one of those speedrun exploits I mentioned at the beginning of the video. On my way down to Future City, I used the Pokeflute to wake up my next team member, a Snorlax, who I named Scorpia. The fight itself, however, was a tad annoying. Catra got it down to low yellow health with a few bites, but I did not want to use another bite because crits are based on base speed in Gen 1, and Catra's base speed is incredible. So I started chucking Great Balls, but Snorlax took Catra out. I switched out to Micah and used 1 quick attack. Then it used Rest. Shut up. I used 2 Hyper Fangs and it woke up. I used Dig, dealing enough damage that it rested again. I used another Dig, and when it woke up, it started spamming Amnesia while I spammed Ice Beam. I brought it down to red health, but then it brought me down to nothing, and I switched out to Bird Jesus and spammed Great Balls till I caught it. When I got to Fuchsia, I went to the Safari Zone and caught my last 2 team members, a Kangaskhan that I named Angela, and a Tauros that I named Swifty. At this point, if you don't understand my naming trend, do yourself a favor and go watch She-Ra and the Princess of Power. It's really good. This does, unfortunately, mean I'm getting rid of Bird Jesus, but Adora is a lot more helpful, and my team only needs 1 flying type. By the way, have I ever mentioned that I friggin' hate the Safari Zone? Because I really do. There are a lot of rare, powerful Pokemon that can only be obtained there, and the only way to catch them is pretty much luck. It's up to luck if you catch them, it's up to luck if they run, and since bait makes them more likely to stay but less likely to be caught, and rocks make them more likely to be caught but also more likely to run, The best strategy is to just throw a ball and hope for the best. On the other hand, I love the Let's Go capture mechanics. In Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, you throw a Pokeball or a berry and hope for the best. However, in Let's Go, there's still a lot of skill involved, because you're more likely to catch it if you throw inside a little colored circle. Also, the Pokemon move, making it even more skill-based. Thanks for listening to me rant about capture mechanics. So, here's the team that I plan to spend the rest of the game with. Catra the Persian, Micah the Raticate, Adora the Fearow, Scorpia the Snorlax, Swifty the Tauros, and Angela the Kangaskhan. I also have a Sandshrew that I use for HMs, but that's not really part of the team. I went after Koga next because I was already in Fuchsia City. I started by using an X accuracy, activating the other speedrun trick I mentioned at the start of the video, because as you see, the X accuracy doesn't work the same in Gens 1 and 2 as it does in other generations. Instead, it makes your Pokemon ignore accuracy checks altogether. That's ridiculously overpowered, and I used it to sweep Koga's team with Horn Drill, a one-hit KO move that's biggest downside is its accuracy, which is no longer an issue with the X accuracy. Now it's time for Erica. I led with Micah, planning to sweep with Ice Beam. I didn't even get her Victory Bell into yellow. Fortunately, though, I froze it. In Gen 1, Pokemon can't just thaw out naturally. If a Pokemon gets frozen, it stays frozen until A, it faints, B, it has a fire move used on it, or C, its trainer uses a healing item. I took it out with a few quick attacks to save PP for Ice Beam. Next up, Tangela, who I took out with 2 Ice Beams. Last up, her Gloom. I used 1 Ice Beam, bringing it down to about a third. Then, she put me to sleep. She used Petal Dance on Micah. I switched out to Adora and took her out with 1 pack. Rival Five time. I used an X accuracy and swept his whole team with Horn Drill. I love the Gen 1 X accuracy trick. I probably have the footage sped up right now so you can see the whole fight, but I record this audio before I do all of the editing, for obvious reasons, so I have no idea whether or not I actually do that. Giovanni time. I led with Scorpia, but her low speed led her to going down when his Kangaskhan came around. I brought in Adora, who dealt with him pretty well, but I switched her out in favor of Angela when his Rhyhorn came. Angela knows Surf, so I took him out easily with a couple of Surfs. Lastly, he brought in Nidoqueen, who I expected to take out with a few Surfs. Then I saw its level. Oh no. Oh, that's really bad. Nidoqueen is 16 levels above Angela. I knew that Angela was going to have to be sacked off, so I spammed Surf until she went down. I brought out Catra, who used Bite a few times before being sacked off herself. By the time Catra went down, though, she had gotten Nidoqueen into red health, so I switched out to Swifty, who could finish the job with 1 stomp. Giovanni complains that he lost again, even though I skipped Rocket Hideout in its entirety, and I move on. Sabrina time. I led with Swifty and took out her Kadabra and Mr. Mime with 2 stomps each. Out comes her Venomoth, and she immediately paralyzes Swifty. I just kept getting fully paralyzed, so she kept attacking until she finished me off. I brought out Catra, who could deal with her Venomoth pretty easily with a few bites. Time for her Alakazam. I took it out with a couple of bites, abusing its slow defense. I've been extremely underleveled for the past few fights, so I decide that I really need to grind before I take on Blaine. I take him on after grinding my whole team to level 50. He was a pushover. I swept his whole team with 1 to 2 Surfs. The longest was his Arcanine, which took 4. Blaine is always really easy in Gen 1, because his AI is stupid. Giovanni time. Again. He was another sweep with Surf. His Nidoking and Nidoqueen weren't Okos, but they were 2 hits. Still good. Now, we're at the Victory Road rival battle. I led with Angela, who could take out his Pidgeot with 2 Dizzy Punches, no problem. Next was his Rhyhorn, who was an easy Oko with Surf. Next was Growlithe, who was also an Oko with Surf. He brought out Execute, at which point I switched out to Micah for a 2-hit KO Ice Beam. He brought out Alakazam, so I switched for Catra, who could hit him with Slash for an easy Oko. Crits are, as I've said earlier, based on base speed in Gen 1, and Catra has incredible base speed, plus Slash, a move that boosts critical hit ratio. Catra using Slash pretty much always crits, and it's incredible. Last is his Blastoise, who was a 2-hit KO with Crit Slash. I love Gen 1 crit logic. Elite 4 time. First up, Ice Trainer Lorelei. 4 of her Pokemon are weak to Electric, so I led with Scorpia, who I hoped could Oko with Thunderbolt. Most of her Pokemon, that didn't happen. Her Dugong was a 2-hit. Her Cloyster was an Oko. Her Slowbro was almost an Oko, but almost don't cut it, I'm afraid, and it was a 2-hit. Then she brought out her Jinx. Jinx is what I was afraid of. It's the only one of her Pokemon that isn't a water type, so it wouldn't be weak to Thunderbolt. So I shot off Hyper Beam. This seems like it would be a terrible idea. Hyper Beam makes you wait out the next turn, so it wouldn't be great, because her Lapras is really strong. Fortunately, though, this is Gen 1. And Gen 1, if you don't already know, is a mess. One of its weird glitches is that if you shoot off Hyper Beam and you KO the Pokemon, you don't have to wait. Oh, Helix, I love Gen 1 sometimes. Needless to say, I Oko'd with Hyper Beam. I don't really like abusing glitches like that, though. That's why I haven't just been destroying every fight with Horn Drill. So, I still use Thunderbolt to take out her Lapras. Next up, Fighting Trainer Bruno. Since he leads with Onix, which is dumb, but I won't get into it here, I led with Angela to hopefully Oko with Surf. I did. Then, I switched out to Dora to deal with his Hitmonlee and Hitmonchan, both of whom were Okos with Drill Peck. Time for his next Onix, so I switched out to Angela for another Oko with Surf. Last is Machamp. I switched out to Adora, but I knew that I wouldn't be able to Oko with Drill Peck, but I figured that I might be able to with Fly. So instead, I used Fly. He used Fissure, even though I'm a flying type, so I came down for Fly the next turn. Unfortunately, though, he lived on a sliver of health. However, he didn't heal, so I finished him off with Drill Peck the next turn. Now we're on to the third member of the Elite Four, Ghost Trainer Agatha. But really, she's a Poison Trainer, because Kanto only has one Ghost-type line, so why do they have a Ghost-type Elite Four member? All of her Pokemon are Poison, though, which is weak to Ground, so I led with Micah to Oko with Dig. For the most part, that's what I did. Her first Gengar was an Oko. Then she brought out Golbat. That's unfortunate. I switched out to Scorpia to hopefully Oko with Thunderbolt, but it lived on a little HP due to Scorpia's atrocious special attack. I finished it off the next turn with Thunderbolt, though. Now on to Haunter, who I switched back to Micah for. Easy Oko with Dig. Arbok time. Easy Oko with Dig. Gengar time. I got a bit worried because it was going pretty slowly, draining his health, but at the end, You know the drill. Easy Oko with Dig. Finally, we're almost at the end. Dragon Trainer Lance. I led with Micah, hoping for an Ice Beam Oko. Little did I know, he leads with Gyarados. I switched out to Scorpia, hoping to Oko with a 4x super effective Thunderbolt. But then he took me out with a crit Hydro Pump before I got the chance. I switched to Catra, hoping for a crit Slash Oko. I did get the crit Slash, but I did not get the Oko. Next turn, I finish him off. Now it's time for Dragonair, so I switch back to Micah, hoping to Oko with Ice Beam. I did not. It took 2 turns, letting him get off a Hyper Beam, which did more than I was comfortable with. He brought out his next Dragonair, and yet again, I hoped for an Ice Beam Oko. I didn't get it, but I did freeze him. That's really good, because in Gen 1, if you're frozen, you can't do jack. You never get a chance to thaw naturally, meaning you're pretty much already fainted. Needless to say, I beat it the next turn. Now, it's time for Aerodactyl. It's still weak to ice, so yet again, I hoped for an Ice Beam Oko. As always, I did not get it. Then, he confused me. That is really bad. I tried attacking twice, but both times, I hit myself in confusion, plus a crit bite from him, leaving me at 2 HP. I decided it best to switch out. I swapped to Swifty because he's my other crit machine, and his health is higher than Catra's. I fired off a crit strength and finished him. Lastly, we're on to his Dragonite. I wish I could switch to Micah, but I don't have any revives, so it would be really bad letting him faint. I kept Swifty in, and kept firing off strength until I got him into red. When he got into red, I did what frankly I should have done right away, and I used Toxic to badly poison him. Then, I finished him off with 1 strength. Now, we're finally at the champion. I led with Swifty, and I think you can see where this is going. I set up an X accuracy on Swifty. He used Whirlwind with his Pidgeot, which would have been really bad, but this is Gen 1. In Gen 1, Whirlwind does nothing in trainer battles. I shot off Horn Drills, Okoing most of his team. Then, he brought down Arcanine. I still Okoed it, but that gave me a reality check. I had him choose Blastoise. Crap. I've been doing this run for a few days now, and I haven't fought him in a while, because I've been grinding a lot. I'm so used to his Charizard team that I forgot his starter won't be weak to Angela's Surf. In case you've forgotten, Lance took out Scorpia, and she's my only electric coverage. I continued Okoing, but when I got to Blastoise, I didn't switch like I'd planned. Instead, I used Toxic, badly poisoning him, so that he's gonna go down to the poison regardless of what damage I did. I switched out to Catra after that, and spammed Crit Slash until I won due to the poison. He primarily just used Withdraw, with 1 Blizzard thrown in right before going down, so I was still able to beat him. Wow, I did it. I won. I wasn't sure I'd be able to do it that try when I realized that I'd had him choose Blastoise. But I did, and it was great. If I did this run again, the only thing I'd change would be that I'd have my starter be Spearow instead of Pidgey, so that I don't need to get rid of my starter, because Fearow is a lot better than Pidgeot. Overall, this run was pretty fun. It was definitely not as hard as some other runs I've done, but it was a lot of fun. I want to get back to doing these more frequently, but I stopped because I don't have much fun making the standard Mono Pokemon Challenge Run stuff. But stuff like this is a lot of fun. Stuff where I can still be able to have fun manipulating teams and working with strategy. So, I think I'll do things like this run more regularly soon. Anyway, Thanks so much for watching all the way to the end. Make sure to like and subscribe to join the PokeCrafter fam, and I will see you next time. Peace out!